My boss sabotaged my $5 million deal until she met the CEO, my brother. Bard. I still remember the exact moment my phone buzzed that morning. The screen lit up with Jade's name, and I should have known right then that something was wrong. My finger hovered over the answer button for just a second before I swiped to accept. Hello? Mary. Her voice came through crisp and cold. Quick question about today's meeting. I was standing in my apartment, halfway through my morning coffee, already dressed in my best navy suit, the one I saved for important clients. Today was the day, the $5 million deal. 3 months of careful relationship building, product consultations, and late-night proposal revisions had led to this moment. "What's up?" I asked, setting my mug down on the kitchen counter. "I was just wondering." She paused, and I could practically hear the smile creeping across her face. "Do you really think I should bring the trash along to a meeting this important?" The words hit me like ice water. "Excuse me?" "You heard me, Mary. It's a $5 million deal. Why would I bring trash?" Before I could respond, before I could even process what she'd just said, the line went dead. I pulled the phone away from my ear and stared at the screen. Call ended. I tried calling back immediately, once, twice, 3 times. Each attempt went straight to voicemail. She'd turned her phone off. My hands started shaking, and it wasn't from the caffeine. Jade had actually done it. She'd planned this from the very beginning, and I'd been too naive to see it coming. But here's the thing Jade didn't know, the thing that made her little power play the biggest mistake of her career. The CEO of that client company? The one we were supposed to meet in less than 3 hours? That was Kyle, my brother. I smiled to myself as I grabbed my laptop bag and headed for the door. I had some calls to make, and Jade was about to learn a very expensive lesson about underestimating people. Let me back up a little. Let me tell you how I ended up in this situation in the first place. My name is Mary Walters, and I work in the sales division of a mid-sized trade company. If you ask anyone in the office, they'll tell you I'm good at what I do, really good. I've been called the ace of the sales department more times than I can count. My proposals are detailed, my client relationships are strong, and my numbers consistently top the charts. But it wasn't always like this. When I first started working here, fresh out of high school at 18, I was a mess. I had no idea what I was doing. My product knowledge was surface level at best, and I relied way too heavily on just being friendly and personable. I thought I could charm my way through every sale, that a bright smile and enthusiastic conversation would be enough. It wasn't. I lost deals, I disappointed customers, I made rookie mistakes that kept me up at night, replaying conversations in my head and cringing at what I should have said instead. The truth is, I'd given up on education years before that. School had become this painful reminder of everything I wasn't. No matter how hard I studied, no matter how many hours I put in with tutors or at cram school, I could never match my brother Kyle's grades. He was the golden child, the one who effortlessly pulled perfect scores, who got into top-tier universities, who made our parents beam with pride at every achievement. I remember taking the SAT and scoring just under 600. I'd studied for months. I'd worked with tutors 3 times a week. I'd given up weekends and social time and everything a teenager is supposed to enjoy. Kyle took it once and scored nearly 1,600. That's when something inside me just broke. I realized that no matter how hard I tried, I'd never be him. I'd never be enough for my parents. So I stopped trying. I told myself I didn't need college, that I'd just get a job and prove myself in the real world instead. But the real world demanded education too, just a different kind. The turning point came during my 2nd month on the job. I had a customer come in looking for a specific product, something we carried, something I could easily sell him. But as I talked to him, really listened to what he needed, I realized we had something better, a different product that would actually solve his problem more effectively. Suggested it, explained the differences, walked him through why it might be a better fit, and he smiled, He thanked me. He said he appreciated that I was actually listening instead of just pushing whatever was popular. That smile changed everything for me. I realized that learning wasn't about competing with Kyle or meeting my parents' expectations. It was about helping people. When I studied product specifications, industry trends, client needs, I wasn't doing it to prove I was smart. I was doing it so I could genuinely help someone solve a problem. From that day forward, I threw myself into learning everything I could. I studied our product catalog like it was a novel. I researched market trends on weekends. I asked questions, took notes, stayed late to understand the technical details. And it worked. My sales numbers climbed. Customers started requesting me specifically. My proposals became known for their thoroughness and accuracy. I built a reputation as someone who could be trusted to find the right solution, not just make a quick sale. But success, as I learned, comes with its own problems. 6 months ago, Jade walked into our office. She was 26, same as me. Blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, designer bag, confidence radiating from every step. Word around the office was that she'd been the top salesperson at a competing firm, that she was being recruited to bring fresh energy to our sales division. I was assigned to train her. "Hi, I'm Mary Walters," I'd said on her first day, extending my hand with what I hoped was a welcoming smile. "I'll be handling your training for the next month. If you have any questions about anything, products, clients, processes, just ask. I'm here to help." Jade looked at my hand for a beat too long before shaking it limply. "You're my trainer?" Her eyes swept over me with barely concealed disdain. "You seem kind of unreliable. Are you sure this is okay?" The comment caught me off guard, but I brushed it off. Maybe she was just nervous, new job jitters. I'd give her the benefit of the doubt. "I know it might seem like a lot at first," I said, keeping my tone friendly and professional, "but I'll make sure you're completely comfortable with everything before you're on your own." Over the next few weeks, I showed her everything. My process for building client relationships, how I researched products to match specific needs, even small touches like including handwritten thank you notes with shipments. Jade's response to almost everything I taught her was criticism. "You actually write thank you notes by hand? Mary, that's so inefficient. Most people probably just throw them away without reading them." "This product is clearly more popular than that one. You should just recommend what sells best. It's basic logic." "You spend way too much time researching. Just learn the top 5 products and focus on those." Every suggestion I made, every technique I shared, she had a condescending comment ready. Like I was some amateur who'd stumbled into success by accident, and she was here to show me how things were really done. I tried to explain my reasoning. Yes, handwritten notes took extra time, but they built genuine connections. Some clients really appreciated that personal touch, and nobody felt worse for receiving one. As for products, recommending what was popular instead of what the client actually needed was a recipe for disaster. If someone asked for fruit high in vitamin C and you pushed a sugary tangerine just because it sold well, you'd lose the sale. Worse, you'd lose their trust. But Jade didn't want to hear it. The real shift came when the monthly sales results were announced. As usual, I'd topped the charts for that period. The team clapped, my manager congratulated me, and I felt that familiar, warm glow of recognition. Everyone was happy for me, except Jade. I caught her staring at me from across the room, her jaw clenched tight, her eyes burning with something that looked a lot like hatred. She bit her lower lip so hard, I thought she might draw blood. From that moment on, everything changed. The harassment started small, almost unnoticeable at first. My favorite pen disappeared from my desk. The sticky notes I'd arranged on my monitor were gone when I came back from lunch. I thought maybe I'd misplaced them, or they'd fallen off and gotten swept up by the cleaning crew. Then, my schedule started disappearing. I didn't put my appointments into the company's shared calendar app. Meetings with clients, follow-up calls, deadlines. And the next day, they'd be gone, completely erased. I'd have to redo everything from memory, scrambling to remember which client I was supposed to call when, which proposal was due on what date. Documents I'd saved in the shared folder vanished. Faxes addressed to me ended up shredded before I could read them. Mail would go missing, and phone calls with important clients, would suddenly cut off mid-conversation, leaving me frantically apologizing and calling back to explain we had technical difficulties. I thought I was going crazy at first. Was I really that forgetful? That careless? But then I saw her. I was on a call with a longtime client discussing the specifications for a custom order when the line suddenly went dead. I stared at my phone in confusion, then looked around the office frantically to see if anyone else had lost service. That's when I spotted Jade. She was standing near the wall where the phone cords connected, holding the unplugged cord in her hand, a smug smile playing across her lips. Our eyes met, and she didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. She just smirked, dropped the cord, and walked back to her desk like nothing had happened. My heart was pounding as I walked over to her cubicle. "Jade, we need to talk." She glanced up from her computer screen with fake innocence. "About what?" "You know what. The harassment. Deleting my files, erasing my schedules, cutting off my calls. It needs to stop." She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Do you have proof?" "I just saw you unplug the phone cord." "Did you?" "I don't remember doing that. And even if I did, maybe it was an accident. You can't prove I did it on purpose." She smiled sweetly. "Don't make accusations without evidence, Mary. It's really annoying. You're being paranoid." I wanted to scream. She'd been caught red-handed, and she was still denying it, twisting it around to make me seem like the unreasonable one. Before I could respond, Jade reached over and grabbed my purse from beside my desk. I was so shocked I couldn't even move. She unzipped it, pulled out my wallet, and calmly removed 2 $20 bills. "Thanks for the bonus," she said, tossing the wallet back onto my desk. "If you keep making these accusations, feel free to give me more. I don't mind." She laughed, actually laughed, and walked away, leaving me standing there in stunned silence. I reported it to my manager. I sat in his office and explained everything. The missing items, the deleted files, the unplugged phone, the stolen money. I tried to stay calm and professional, but my voice shook with frustration. My manager listened, nodding occasionally, his expression sympathetic. "I understand this is difficult, Mary," he said when I finished. "But without concrete proof, it's hard to take disciplinary action. Even if we had proof, if there's no clear malicious intent, these things could be chalked up to mistakes. I can't reprimand someone too harshly based on suspicion alone." "But she took money from my wallet right in front of me." "Did anyone else see it happen?" I hesitated. "No, but..." "Then it's your word against hers." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Look, I'll talk to her. I'll make it clear that this kind of behavior isn't acceptable. But that's the best I can do right now." He did talk to her. I don't know what was said, but based on Jade's reaction afterward, it couldn't have been very stern, because the harassment got worse. She started deleting my schedules daily. Not just once in a while, every single day. I'd input my appointments in the morning, and by afternoon, they'd be gone. I started keeping a paper backup just to keep track of everything. Documents I created for proposals would disappear from the shared folder, forcing me to recreate them from scratch. My overtime hours doubled, then tripled. I was staying at the office until 8, 9, sometimes 10 at night just to keep up with the extra work her sabotage created. For phone calls, I started telling clients to email me for non-urgent matters and only call my personal cell for important issues. I explained we were having technical difficulties with the office line. It was inconvenient, and I hated making excuses, but it was better than having crucial conversations cut off mid-sentence. I checked the shredder bin multiple times a day, fishing out faxes and mail addressed to me before they could be destroyed. Every day was exhausting. Every day was a battle. But I kept going. I told myself it wouldn't last forever. Eventually, Jade would get bored, or she'd slip up badly enough that management would have to act, or she'd move on to another job. I just had to endure. And then, 5 months later, everything came to a head. Our company received an inquiry from one of the biggest medical device manufacturers in the country. They were looking for a supplier for a major product line, something that could potentially be worth millions if we played it right. I was chosen as the primary contact. It made sense. I had experience with large accounts, a track record of successful deals, and a reputation for thorough, client-focused service. This was exactly the kind of opportunity I'd been working toward. The potential contract value? $5 million. If I closed this deal, I wouldn't just hit my quarterly target, I'd secure a spot on the promotion track. This was career-defining. Because of the size and importance of the account, I was assigned a support person to help manage the workload. I'd planned to choose someone I worked well with, someone reliable. But before I could make a suggestion, Jade volunteered. She practically begged my manager to assign her, talking about how eager she was to learn from a major deal, how much she wanted to contribute to the company's success. Her enthusiasm was so over the top that my manager, impressed by her apparent dedication, agreed. I should have fought harder against it, but it was work. I thought, naively, that even Jade would put aside personal grudges for something this important. I was wrong. Instead of supporting me, Jade went rogue. She sent product materials to the client without my approval. Not materials for the products they'd inquired about, materials for products she personally thought they should buy. Products that didn't actually match their needs. A colleague quietly tipped me off. Thank God. I immediately called the client contact, casually mentioning that someone from our team had sent over some additional materials for products they might find interesting. I briefly explained the differences between what Jade had sent and what they'd originally inquired about, and in the process, I was able to dig deeper into what they actually needed. It could have been a disaster. Instead, I turned it into an opportunity to better understand their requirements. On the day of our in-person meeting, I presented the products they'd asked about, then used the information from our previous conversations to recommend alternatives that better matched their specific situation. We discussed the pros and cons of each option. We talked about their long-term goals, their budget constraints, their operational needs. By the end of the meeting, we'd narrowed it down to 3 final candidates. The client said they'd consult with their higher-ups and get back to us within a few days. 2 days later, they called with their decision. They wanted to move forward with one of the products I'd recommended. We discussed quantities, delivery schedules, payment terms, all the details that would go into the final contract. I prepared a formal quote and sent it over. The total? $5 million. When Jade heard the news, her eyes went wide. "Wow," she said, walking over to my desk with that familiar fake smile. "That's huge. I'm guessing they went with the product I sent materials for, right? Let me see the quote." Before I could respond, she snatched the paper from my hands. Her smile froze as she read it. The product they'd chosen wasn't the one she'd sent materials for. It wasn't even one of the 3 finalists. Her recommendation had been completely wrong for their needs, like suggesting an orange bell pepper when someone asked for a red vegetable. Close, maybe, but not what they wanted. "Looks like it didn't quite match their needs this time," I said evenly. "Jade, could you handle booking our flights? We're scheduled for a meeting at their headquarters in 2 weeks. We should go together." She looked up from the quote, and for just a second I thought I saw her relax, like she'd come to terms with it. "Sure," she said, her smile returning. "I'll take care of it." That was 12 days ago, and this morning, standing in the airport, I realized she'd never booked my ticket at all. The meeting was scheduled for 1 p.m. It was a 3-hour flight, which meant we needed to leave by 10 a.m. at the latest. I'd arranged to meet Jade directly at the airport at 9 to give us plenty of buffer time. I didn't go to the office first, just headed straight from my apartment with my carry-on bag and laptop. 9 came and went. No Jade. I stood near the check-in counter, scanning the crowd for her blonde ponytail, my phone clutched in my hand. I tried calling. Once. Twice. 5 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. By 9:15, I was starting to panic. By 9:30, I was genuinely worried something had happened to her. At 9:45, I approached the airline counter, my heart racing. Hi, I'm supposed to be on the 10 o'clock flight, but I haven't received my ticket yet. Can you check if there's a reservation under Mary Walters? On her computer, her expression neutral. I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't see a reservation under that name. My stomach dropped. Can you check under Jade Morrison? She was supposed to book for both of us. More typing, but only for one passenger. Only one. She'd never booked my ticket. This whole time, she'd never intended to. With shaking hands, I dialed Jade's number again. This time, she answered. Sorry, I was busy with boarding and couldn't pick up earlier. Her voice was cheerful, casual, like we were chatting about the weather. Jade, I could barely keep my voice steady. They're saying there's no reservation for me, only you. What's going on? There was a pause, and then I heard it. Laughter. She was actually laughing. It's a $5 million deal, Mary, she said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. Why would I bring the trash along? The world seemed to tilt. I could hear her giggling on the other end, clearly delighted with herself. Then the call ended. When I tried calling back, her phone was off. She'd planned this from the very beginning. The volunteering to help, the booking the flights, the friendly smile when I'd asked her to handle the travel arrangements. All of it had been leading to this moment. She wanted me to fail. She wanted the deal to fall apart. She wanted to humiliate me. But there was one thing Jade didn't know. One critical piece of information that was about to turn her petty revenge into the worst mistake of her life. I pulled up my brother's contact and hit call. Kyle, it's Mary. I need a favor. Let me tell you about Kyle. My brother is 3 years older than me, and for most of my life, he's been everything I'm not. Brilliant, successful, effortlessly competent. While I struggled through school, he sailed through with perfect grades. While I scraped by with a high school diploma, he graduated summa cum laude from an Ivy League university. He didn't rest on the family name either. Our great-grandfather founded a major conglomerate, the Westfall Company Group, that spans everything from retail to telecommunications to logistics. Our father and uncles run various branches of the company. Kyle could have walked into an executive position straight out of college. Instead, he started his own company from scratch. In 10 years, he built it into one of the leading medical device manufacturers in the country. People in the industry call him the second coming of our great-grandfather, a natural businessman with an instinct for market trends and client needs. And the client I'd been working with for the past 3 months, the $5 million deal, that was Kyle's company. He didn't know I was the account manager. Our company policy keeps client meetings relatively anonymous until later stages, using account numbers and project codes instead of names. Kyle knew he was working with our company, but he had no idea his little sister was the one building the proposal. Until I called him that morning from the airport. Let me get this straight, Kyle said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Your colleague deliberately didn't book your flight so you couldn't attend the meeting? That's exactly what happened. And this is the same colleague who sent us that useless product brochure 3 weeks ago? The same one. There was a long pause. I could practically hear him thinking. Put yourself on the standby list for the next available flight, he said finally. I'll handle things on this end. Kyle, trust me, Mary. This is going to be fine. Better than fine, actually. He hung up before I could ask what he meant. I did as he suggested, adding my name to the standby list for the next flight. Both that one and the one after it were fully booked. Holiday travel season meant everything was packed. The earliest I could realistically get on a plane was 3 p.m., which would get me there by 6, 4 hours after the meeting was supposed to start. At 1 p.m. exactly, the moment the meeting was scheduled to begin, my phone rang. Jade's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering, keeping my voice calm. Hello? Where are you? Jade's voice was sharp, panicked. You need to get here right now. I'm at the airport. You know exactly where I am. The client, the CEO, says he won't do the deal unless you're here. You have to come. I smiled despite myself. That's interesting, considering you specifically didn't book my flight. Silence. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb, Jade. You told me this morning, remember? Why would you bring the trash to a $5 million meeting? Before she could respond, my phone buzzed with a video call request. Kyle. Hold on, Jade. I'm getting another call. I switched to the video call. The screen showed Jade's pale, panicked face in the foreground. Behind her, I could see my brother sitting at the head of a conference table, his expression cold and professional. Next to him was someone I recognized, my uncle, the CEO of our company, and beside him, our sales manager looking like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Mary, Kyle's voice came through the speaker, formal and distant. Your colleague here informed me that you were unable to attend today's meeting. She suggested we proceed without you. Is that right? I kept my tone neutral. I explained to her that without the primary account manager present, we would have no choice but to cancel the contract. Jade's face on screen had gone from pale to white as paper. The CEO and manager from your company have joined us, Kyle continued. I thought it would be appropriate for them to understand the situation. My uncle leaned into frame. Mary, can you explain why you're not at this meeting? My flight wasn't booked, sir. I arrived at the airport this morning to find that only Jade had a reservation. Is this true? My uncle turned to look at Jade off screen. I couldn't hear her response, but I saw my brother's expression harden. Ms. Morrison, Kyle said, his voice dropping several degrees in temperature. I heard you refer to my sister as trash. I find that extremely disrespectful. Jade's eyes went wide on the screen. Your sister? Mary Walters is my younger sister, Kyle said coldly, and she's the most competent account manager I've worked with in years. The fact that you sabotaged her attendance at this meeting while calling her trash is completely unacceptable. No, I was trying to help. I brought a new proposal, a better product. Enough. Kyle's voice cut through her stammering like a knife. I already addressed this. You sent us materials for a product that didn't meet our needs whatsoever. When I asked our original contact about it, he was confused. He said the primary account manager would never send something so off base. Now I understand why. You sent it without authorization. But it's a popular product. It's one of our best sellers. I don't care if it's the most popular product in the world, Kyle snapped. It doesn't solve our problem. Mary, the person you call trash, took the time to understand what we actually needed. She explained the advantages and disadvantages of every option. She treated us like intelligent partners, not just another sale. That's why we wanted to work with your company, because we trusted her. My chest tightened. I'd never heard Kyle talk about my work like that. Never knew he thought so highly of what I did. If you're planning to replace her with someone who only cares about pushing popular products without understanding the client, Kyle continued, then we'll have to reconsider this partnership entirely. My uncle immediately jumped in. Absolutely not. We have no intention of replacing Mary. She's one of our best account managers, and this situation is entirely due to a failure in supervision on our part. President Walters, please accept our sincere apologies for wasting your time today. We would very much like to reschedule once Mary is available. Kyle seemed to consider this for a long moment. For the sake of our professional relationship and out of respect for you and your manager, he said finally, I'm willing to reschedule. But this kind of disrespect cannot happen again. It won't, my uncle assured him. You have my word. Ms. Morrison, my uncle's voice turned sharp as he addressed Jade, return to the office immediately. We'll discuss this there. The video call ended, but not before I caught a glimpse of Jade's face, devastated, humiliated, and finally understanding just how badly she'd miscalculated. Jade returned to the office that evening, long after regular business hours. I was still there, along with my manager and the company's CEO. We'd been discussing damage control strategies, ways to salvage the relationship with Kyle's company, potential timeline adjustments. When Jade walked into the conference room, she looked like she'd aged 5 years in one afternoon. Her hair was messy, her makeup smudged, her designer clothes rumpled. Sit down, the manager said, his voice cold. She sat. Explain yourself. For a moment, Jade just stared at the table. Then she looked up and I saw tears forming in her eyes. I was set up, she said, her voice breaking. Mary set me up. Please, you have to believe me. My uncle raised an eyebrow. Set up how exactly? She told me to go to the meeting alone. She said I was being impertinent for questioning her, that I should learn my place. She threatened to make my life hell if I didn't do what she said. I stared at her in disbelief. Was she serious? That's not true, I said firmly. None of that happened. You're lying! Jade turned to the manager, tears streaming down her face now. She's been bullying me ever since I started. She deletes my files, spreads rumors about me, sabotages my work. I was just trying to prove myself today, to show that I could handle a big client on my own. Is any of this true, Mary? The manager asked. Absolutely not. If anything, it's the opposite. Jade has been harassing me for months. That's ridiculous. Where's your proof? Jade shot back, her tears disappearing as quickly as they'd appeared. You can't just make accusations without evidence. I couldn't help but smile. You're right, I said, pulling out my phone. I should have proof. I opened my voice recording app and selected the most recent file, the conversation from this morning at the airport. Jade's voice came through the speaker, crystal clear. It's a $5 million deal, Mary. Why would I bring the trash along? The manager's face went dark. There's more, I said, scrolling through my recordings. I played clip after clip, Jade making snide comments, insulting my work, bragging about sabotaging my projects. Jade's face had gone ashen. But that's not all, I continued. Jade, you've been deleting documents I saved in the shared folder, haven't you? Erasing schedules I put in the company calendar app. No, you can't prove that. Actually, I can. Our company's internal network tracks every action taken on shared resources, every file deleted, every calendar entry modified. It's all logged with a timestamp and user ID. If we pull those records, it'll show exactly who's been sabotaging my work. Jade's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. We'll be conducting a full investigation, my uncle said, standing up. His voice was ice. Jade Morrison, you're suspended, effective immediately. Do not come to the office until this is resolved. Do I make myself clear? No, please. I didn't mean, I was just... Do I make myself clear? He repeated. Jade's shoulders slumped. Yes, sir. Good. Leave now. She gathered her things and left without another word, though I could hear her crying in the hallway. The next day, despite being explicitly told to stay home, Jade showed up at the office. Our supervisor, who'd been briefed on the situation, immediately sent her home. When she tried to argue, the manager himself came out and told her in no uncertain terms that if she violated the suspension order again, she'd be fired on the spot. She finally left. For the next few days, the office was peaceful. My work flowed smoothly. I could actually focus on my projects instead of constantly checking for sabotage. I thought the worst was over. And then, 3 days into the investigation, my uncle called me into his office again. The manager was there too, both of them looking grim. We need to show you something, my uncle said. He turned his computer monitor toward me. On the screen was a video call interface showing my brother's office. And sitting across from Kyle, gesturing enthusiastically as she spoke, was Jade. What? She bypassed our company entirely, the manager explained, his voice tight with anger, went directly to the client's office and requested a meeting with the CEO. I watched in horror as the scene unfolded. Jade was in full sales mode, apparently pitching the same product she'd tried to push before, the one that didn't meet the company's needs. She gestured animatedly, smiled brightly, clearly thought she was charming her way to success. Kyle's expression was stone. Ms. Morrison, his voice came through the speakers, cold and professional. We already explained that product doesn't meet our requirements. This meeting is over. But if you just give me a chance... She reached out and grabbed his arm, actually grabbed it. And then, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. She pressed herself against him, her chest pushed forward, looking up at him with what she probably thought was a flirtatious smile. I'm sure we can work something out, she purred. Kyle stood up so fast his chair rolled backward. Are you mocking me? His voice was deadly quiet. Jade blinked, suddenly realizing she'd made a catastrophic error. No, I just thought... Get out of my office, now. That's when Kyle had called my uncle and demanded a video conference to address what had just happened. She told us you sent her, my uncle said, pausing the video. Said you ordered her to use any means necessary to secure the contract. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. That's insane. I would never... We know, the manager interrupted. We know you didn't. But we need to address this formally. The video call resumed, now showing all of us. My uncle, the manager, me, and Kyle, with Jade sitting miserably beside him in his office. Mary had nothing to do with this, I said immediately. I didn't send her. I didn't even know she'd left the city. I believe you, Kyle said, but Ms. Morrison's behavior has now crossed several lines. She disrespected you, sabotaged a major business deal, violated company protocols, and today she showed up uninvited at my office and behaved in a way that was completely inappropriate. He turned to look directly at Jade through the camera. I cannot, in good conscience, continue any business relationship with a company that employs someone like this. Our company doesn't work with people we can't trust. My uncle nodded slowly. I understand completely. What would you suggest? I think you know what I'm suggesting. There was a long, heavy silence. Wait! Jade suddenly burst out. Please, anything but that. I'll apologize. I'll make it right. You've had multiple chances to make it right, Kyle said coldly. You chose not to. Mary! Jade turned to the camera, tears streaming down her face again. Please, you have to help me. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. We're colleagues, right? You wouldn't want me to lose my job over this. I looked at her crying face, at the desperation in her eyes, and felt absolutely nothing. No, I said simply. Please, I'm begging you. I'll never call you trash again. I'll stop deleting your files. I'll leave your mail alone. I'll never unplug your phone. You just confessed to everything, the manager pointed out. Jade's face crumpled. Even if I wanted to help you, I said quietly, it wouldn't matter. My brother doesn't make hiring and firing decisions at my company. That's up to the CEO. I didn't mention that the CEO was my uncle. Let her figure that out on her own. My uncle ended the call shortly after. He made his decision quickly. Trang was terminated immediately, despite still being in her probationary period. She was also served with a lawsuit for damages. The disruption to business operations, the potential loss of the contract, even the travel expenses she'd incurred going to Kyle's office without authorization. But it didn't end there. My uncle made it clear that he'd be communicating Jade's behavior to all companies within the Westfall Group. Given that the Westfall conglomerate had fingers in nearly every major industry in the country, that effectively meant Jade would be blacklisted from any decent job she might try to get. She'd have to pay back substantial damages while struggling to find work. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. After Jade left, my life returned to normal. Better than normal, actually. My sales performance improved steadily. That conversation with Kyle, hearing him defend my work so passionately, had given me a confidence boost I hadn't realized I needed. Clients noticed the change. You've always been reliable, one longtime customer told me during a call, but lately you seem more assured, more confident in your recommendations. I was on track for my best year ever. The $5 million deal eventually went through, though we had to make some concessions on pricing and terms given all the chaos. Kyle was professional about it. He understood it wasn't my fault, but his company still needed compensation for the wasted time and resources. I didn't mind. Landing the deal at all, after everything that happened, felt like a victory. But the biggest change was personal. For the first time in years, I felt like going home for the holidays. I'd been avoiding family gatherings since I started working, too insecure about my choices, too afraid of being compared to Kyle. But now, knowing that he respected my work, that he saw value in what I did even though it wasn't the same path he took, it made me want to reconnect. Thanksgiving was coming up in a few weeks. I called my mom. Mary, sweetheart, is everything okay? Everything's fine, Mom. I was just wondering, would it be okay if I came home for Thanksgiving this year? There was a pause. Then I heard the smile in her voice. Of course! We'd love to have you. Kyle's coming too. It'll be the whole family together. That sounds perfect. As I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe I'd never be exactly like Kyle. Maybe I'd never have his grades, his Ivy League degree, his instinct for building companies from scratch. But I didn't need to be like him. I had my own path, my own skills, my own successes. And for the first time, that felt like enough.